What's up YouTube? Stephen here from Carter Fitness and Nutrition. So today we will be discussing about Lantus, which is a slow acting insulin. But we will continue right after the Okay, so Lantus, why is it used? Why do bodybuilders tend to use it? And what are the real purposes of Lantus? So obviously Lantus is a slow-acting insulin that's usually prescribed to people with diabetes. Obviously it keeps a steady level of insulin throughout the day. So in this case, obviously they would inject it in the morning and it would last between 18 to 24 hours. So this way the body can then use the insulin sparingly for the carbohydrates that they consume. And sometimes obviously there's times where they might eat a meal a little bit late, but however it doesn't matter so much because you don't go as hypoglycemic on Lantus compared to other ones like Nova Rapid. So but this video we will be discussing about Lantus. So the uses in bodybuilding. So bodybuilding, obviously we use Lantus to enhance nutrient uptake of carbohydrates to the muscle, but also can store as fat because it is enhancing the uptake, but it's giving the pancreas a break. So when you are consuming a very high amount of carbohydrates, what happens is your pancreas becomes under stress and it won't digest all those carbs. That's what causes distension of the stomach. So when you use insulin, it helps to use more of those carbohydrates that you are consuming, and which means the uptake of carbohydrates will be sent to the muscles a lot more efficiently. Okay, which obviously increases IGF-1, which helps with muscle growth, not directly, but obviously stimulated by overall carbohydrate intake, just by helping with the use of Lantus. So if we had to say dosage wise, so most bodybuilders would assume, okay, we're eating 1,000 grams of carbs a day, let's just take 30 IUs of Lantus a day. Doesn't work like that. However, there is a method that can work, but it's all individually based. So this is probably the most accurate method for most people. So how to calculate it would be your weight in kilograms times that by 0.2. Okay, so if you times that by 0.2, that will give you roughly how much insulin you should take in a day based on your body weight. So obviously, let's say for someone that's around, well, 92 kilograms, perhaps 89, maybe 90 kilo, you probably will be within the range of 17 to 20 IUs a day, roughly. Anywhere lower obviously would be lower than 15, maybe down as low as 10 if you were like, let's say, a 50 60 kilo person. But most likely at that weight you will not be using Lantus because you're not going to be consuming 1,000 grams of carbs or so. But however, I do only recommend usually start the dose at 10 IUs per day. Why I say that is because we don't want to go to the deep end, right? So some people might actually take 0.2 per kilo of body weight, but however, some people might actually go hypoglycemic throughout the day, not to an intense level where we're saying we're faint, but to the level where we get a bit of brain fog, perhaps we feel a bit dizzy. So our best approach with that way is start at 10 IUs a day, just gradually taper that up, maybe over the course of every 1 to 2 weeks, and just see where we're at. And the moment that you start feeling, okay, starting to feel a bit iffy, a little bit down the dumps, maybe you get a bit dizzy during your workout, then you know that dose is too much. Okay, now obviously a question that gets asked to me in particular is when basically how many carbohydrates should you consume when you're on Lantus? Well, so if you're, let's say, under 500 grams of carbs, I would say stay away. Anywhere over 500, I would say minimum of 5 IUs per day. up to maybe 600 to 700, possibly. Then we could say start with 10 and then perhaps 15. Depends on how big you are, obviously. Yeah, so obviously go by your size. And however, and I will mention this, growth hormone. If you are taking growth hormone, I do say you might have to run insulin at a little bit of a lower intake of carbohydrates. Let's say, so I'll put this out for you, make it a bit more simple. So if you weren't taking growth hormone, I would say minimum between 500 to 600 grams of carbs per day before you even suggest insulin. If you were to touch growth hormone, which obviously increases insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance, sorry, then I would say on the lower end of maybe 400 to 500 grams of carbs you can then add insulin, and that's because of the increase of insulin resistance. So that means you can get away with taking insulin with a little bit less carbohydrates. But don't go ahead and take insulin with 200 grams of carbs, 300 grams of carbs, because you are just going to look like a zombie all day. Okay? So this is what I would suggest. Obviously, if you're brand new to it, I would take this advice. Don't ram up to like 20 IUs a day. Start at, say, between 5 and 10. Just taper it up as your carbs go up, or perhaps match it with the amount of carbs you have. And then, once you hit that mark where you think, okay, I'm taking too much, put it back. Okay? Good news is Lantus isn't as dangerous as, say, Nova Rapid, which is a fast-acting insulin. If you were to take a lot of that, which is usually obviously based on per how many grams of carbs you have in that 1 meal, you were to eat a meal too late, you will go hypoglycemic very, very quickly. But with Lantus, it takes roughly 2 to 3 hours to fully saturate in your body. So basically meaning that's the time where it kicks in. So if you were to take a Lantus first thing in the morning, let's say 30 minutes, 45 minutes before breakfast, by the time you have your pre-workout meal, it will be high level in your body by the time you take that. Okay? So yes, don't expect for the first breakfast. You might, I mean, sometimes it all depends. Everybody's got different metabolism. You might be on the lower end, let's say an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Then obviously you might feel it then. Obviously if your muscles fill out around 3 hours, especially after a high carb meal, then you know the Lantus is pretty much in there. Yeah, but don't use insulin in replacement of obviously testosterone, okay? Because it doesn't work the same way. Testosterone is anabolic by increasing testosterone in the body. Well, insulin works as insulin, both anabolic but have different purposes. Okay. I think that wraps it up for all of us guys. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Please check out Manic Muscle Labs in the description. And yes, please check out our Instagram, AcarterFitness90. That'd be fantastic if you can follow us there. And that'll be it today, guys. Thank you very much.